As his had landed, he slaughtered some animals and roasted them on a fire. No wonder that the exhausted and hungry gods gathered like flies over the offering. Suddenly they realized that man, and the food he grew, and the cattle he raised were essential. When at length Enlil arrived, and saw the ark, he was wroth. But the logic of the situation and Enki's persuasion prevailed. Enlil made his peace with the remnants of mankind, and took Atrahasis and pushed him and his craft up to the eternal abode of the gods. Another factor in the quick decision to make peace with mankind may have been the progressive abatement of the flood, and the re-emergence of dry land, and the vegetation upon it. We have already concluded that the Nephilim became aware ahead of time of the approaching calamity, but it was so unique in their experience that they feared that Earth would become uninhabitable forever. As they landed on Ararat, they saw that this was not so. Earth was still habitable, and to live on it, they needed man. What was this catastrophe? Predictable yet unavoidable. An important key to unlocking the puzzle of the deluge is the realization that it was not a single, sudden event, but the climax of a chain of events. Unusual pestilences affecting man and beast, and the severe drought preceded the ordeal by water, a process that lasted, according to the Mesopotamia sources, 7 passings, or zars. These phenomena could be accounted for only by major climatic changes. Such changes have been associated in Earth's past with the recurring ice ages and interglacial stages that had dominated Earth's immediate past. Reduced precipitation, falling sea and lake levels, and the drying up of subterranean water sources have been the hallmarks of an approaching ice age. Since the deluge that abruptly ended those conditions was followed by the Sumerian civilization, and our own present, post-glacial age, the glaciation in question could only have been the last one. Our conclusion is that the events of the deluge relate to Earth's last ice age, and its catastrophic ending. Drilling into the Arctic and Antarctic ice sheets, scientists have been able to measure the oxygen trapped in the various layers, and to judge from that the climate that prevailed millennia ago. Core samples from the bottoms of the seas, such as the Gulf of Mexico, measuring the proliferation or dwindling of marine life, likewise enable them to estimate temperatures in ages past. Based on such findings, scientists are now certain that the last ice age began some 75,000 years ago, and underwent a mini-warming some 40,000 years ago. Circa 38,000 years ago, a harsher, colder, and drier period ensued. And then, about 13,000 years ago, the Ice Age abruptly ended, and our present mild climate was assured. In aligning the biblical and Sumerian information, we find that the harsh times, the accusation of Earth, began in the time of Noah's father Lamech. His hopes that the birth of Noah respite would mark the end of the hardships was fulfilled in an unexpected way, through the catastrophic deluge. Many scholars believe that the 10 biblical pre-diluvial patriarchs Adam and Noah somehow parallel the 10 pre-diluvial rulers of the Sumerian king lists. These lists do not apply to divine titles Dengir, or unto the last 2 of the 10, and treat Zecharia and his father Ubar-Tutu as men. The latter 2 parallel Noah and his father Lamech, and according to the Sumerian lists, the 2 reigned a combined total of 64,800 years until the deluge occurred. The last ice age, from 75,000 to 13,000 years ago, lasted 62,000 years. Since the hardships began when Ubar-Tutu/Lamech was already reigning, the 62,000 fit perfectly into the 64,800. Moreover, the extremely harsh conditions lasted, according to the Atrahasis epic, 7 shars, or 25,200 years. The scientists discovered evidence of an extremely harsh period from circa 38,000 to 13,000 years ago, a span of 25,000 years. Once again, the Mesopotamian evidence and modern scientific findings corroborate each other. Our endeavor to unravel the puzzle of the deluge, then, focuses on Earth's climatic changes, and in particular the abrupt collapse of the Ice Age some 13,000 years ago. What could have caused a sudden climatic change of such magnitude? Of the many theories advanced by the scientists, we are intrigued by the one suggested by Dr. John D. Holland of the University of Maine. He continued that the Antarctic ice sheet periodically breaks loose and slips into the sea, creating an abrupt and enormous tidal wave. This hypothesis, accepted and elaborated upon by others, suggests that as the ice sheet grew thicker and thicker, it not only trapped more of Earth's heat beneath the ice sheet, but also created by pressure and friction a slushy, slippery layer at its bottom, acting as a lubricant between the thick ice sheet above and the solid Earth below. This slushy layer sooner or later caused the ice sheet to slide into the surrounding ocean. Holland calculated that if only half the present ice sheet of Antarctica, which is, on the average, more than a mile in thickness, were to slip into the southern seas, the immense tidal wave that would follow would raise the level of all the seas around the globe by some 60 feet, inundating coastal cities and lowlands. In 1964, A.T. Wilson of Victoria University in New Zealand offered the theory that ice ages ended abruptly in such slippages, not only in the Antarctic but also in the Arctic. We feel that the various texts and facts gathered by us justify a conclusion that the deluge was the result of such a slippage into the Antarctic waters of billions of tons of ice, bringing an abrupt end to the last ice age. The sudden event triggered an immense tidal wave. Starting in Antarctic waters, it spread northward toward the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans. The abrupt change in temperature must have created violent storms accompanied by torrents of rain. Moving faster than the waters, the storms, clouds, and darkened skies heralded the avalanche of waters. Exactly such phenomena are described in the ancient texts. As commanded by Enki, Atrahasis sent everybody aboard the ark, while he himself stayed outside to await the signal for boarding the vessel and sealing it off. Providing a human interest detail, the ancient text tells us that Atrahasis, though ordered to stay outside the vessel, was in and out. He could not sit, could not crouch, his heart was broken, he was vomiting all. But then, the moon disappeared. The appearance of the weather changed, the rains roared in the clouds. The winds became savage, the deluge set out. Its might came upon the people, like a battle. One person did not see another, they were not recognizable in the destruction. The deluge bellowed like a bull, the winds whinnied like a wild ass. The darkness was dense, the sun could not be seen. The Epic of Gilgamesh is specific about the direction from which the storm came. It came from the south. Clouds, winds, rain, and darkness indeed preceded the tidal wave which first tore down the posts of Nergal. In the lower world with the glow of dawn a black cloud arose from the horizon. Inside it the god of storms thundered. Everything that had been bright turned to blackness. For one day the south storm blew, gathering speed as it blew, submerging the mountains. 6 days and 6 nights blows the wind as the south storm sweeps the land. When the 7th day arrived, the deluge of the south storm subsided. The references to the south storm, south wind clearly indicate the direction from which the deluge arrived. Its clouds and winds, the heralds of the storm, moving over hill and plain to reach Mesopotamia. Indeed, a storm and an avalanche of water originating in the Antarctic would reach Mesopotamia via the Indian Ocean, after first engulfing the hills of Arabia, then inundating the Tigris-Euphrates plain. The Epic of Gilgamesh also informs us that before the people and their land were submerged, the dams of the dry land and its dikes were torn out, the continental coastlines were overwhelmed and swept over. The biblical version of the deluge story reports that the bursting of the fountains of the great deep preceded the opening of the sluices of heaven. First, the waters of the great deep, what a descriptive name for the southernmost, frozen Antarctic seas, broke loose out of their icy confinement. Only then did the rains begin to pour from the skies. This confirmation of our understanding of the deluge is repeated in reverse when the deluge subsided. First the fountains of the deep were dammed, then the rain was arrested from the skies. After the first immense tidal wave, its waters were still coming and going back in huge waves. Then the waters began going back, and they were less after 150 days, when the ark came to rest between the peaks of Ararat. The avalanche of water, having come from the southern seas, went back to the southern seas. How could the Nephilim predict when the deluge would burst out of Antarctica? The Mesopotamian text, we know, related the deluge and the climatic changes preceding it to 7 passings, undoubtedly meaning the periodic passage of the 12th planet in Earth's vicinity. We know that even the Moon, Earth's small satellite, exerts sufficient